In this video, what I'm going to be doing is just demonstrating what an exception is in Java and how you can deal with it. And there's lots of different ways of dealing with exceptions and errors, and I'm going to show you my way of dealing with this error. So let's create a new program. It's just a new Java application. I'm going to call this thing Math Error Example. Just delete these comments. And what I'm going to do is I want to demonstrate a mathematical error. What I'm going to do is I want to prevent a division by 0. So if you take a calculator and you were to just divide, say, like 5 divided by 0 and hit equals, that is illegal. You can't actually do that in mathematics. And you're going to get an exception. And I'm going to demonstrate the exception first, and then I'll show you how I would actually deal with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a scanner object. Let's create the scanner here and fix the imports. And I'm going to go, maybe I'll use doubles for this. Numerator and denominator. So numerator is the top number, denominator is the bottom number, the fraction. So system out print, please enter the numerator. And numerator equals input dot next double. And we'll do the same thing for the denominator. Please enter the denominator. Oops. And denominator input dot next double. And then once I got those two numbers, I should be able to divide them and then print out my answer. So let's create an answer variable here. Numerator divided by denominator. And I'll just print them out. So let's go numerator plus a slash. Denominator equal sign plus answer. I'm just doing it in a pleasing fashion so it actually looks nice when you print it. So if I put 5 divided by 6 equals, and it should show some decimals. Let's just make sure the program works first, then we'll worry about the exception. Okay, so do something simple first. 20 divided by 10 should say 2. Awesome. So let's try something with decimals, make sure that actually shows up. Might be some rounding issues when it comes to decimals, but it'll still work. Yep, that worked out good. Okay, so now we know that this line might crash if there's an error. And I'm going to show you the error. And what I'm going to do, when I'm testing a program or I'm guarding a program, what I like to do is crash it on purpose. Because I want to know what the actual exception is that might occur. So let's do the actual error here. 9 divided by 0. Actually says infinity. Interesting. I was not expecting that. I wonder if it's just because it's a double. I just want to try with ints maybe. I really wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be an exception. It might still be an exception that we can guard for, but I'm just going to try something here. Let's put this back to int, because I know if we use ints, it will definitely crap out. The whole point is to show you what happens with an exception, so let's try with ints instead, and let's see if that looks any better. I don't want to say infinity, because it's not really the point of this. That's what I wanted. There we go. Okay, so I guess it behaves differently with doubles than ints, but this is what I wanted. I wanted to show you what an actual exception looks like, and this is definitely an exception that we've got. And the type of exception I got is called an arithmetic exception. So it's important to know the name of the exception or the type of exception you're going to get. And that's the one that I was trying to get the first time, but it wasn't coming up with a double, which I really wasn't expecting. So In this particular case, though, I do know there's an exception here, and I'm going to show you how to guard this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go right here and write the word try. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to run this code. And if there's any error, we have to do what's called a catch. And I'm going to catch an arithmetic exception. You got to type it exactly like this. Arithmetic exception, and then usually what I do is I give it a name, and I usually call it like AE, something that's short for arithmetic exception. And then in here, I'll just write system.err.println error denominator cannot be 0. Something like that. And I'm just going to fix my formatting here. Okay, so what I've done is I've surrounded this code right here with this try command. It's a try block here. And what basically happens is if it crashes anywhere inside of here, and specifically if you get an arithmetic exception anywhere inside of here, it'll jump out of this section and it'll run this code. Now system.err, what that does is it prints in red because it's an error message. And it should just exit the program. It'll say error denominator cannot be 0, and that's the end of it. Let's see if that actually occurs. So I'll do a regular one first. 1 divided by 3. Again, see it's rounding here, so it's not behaving really the way I want. But I wanted to show you the exception anyways. 9 divided by 0. Okay, so now it's not actually throwing an exception anymore. The exception is going into this code right here. So there's a couple things we can do here. We can just exit the program like that, or we can go ahead and change the denominator or allow the user to enter it again. So one way I like to do it is to use some kind of a loop. So I like doing something like this. Is error equals true. So I make a Boolean variable called isError, and I set it to true. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say while isError equals true. So begin the loop. You're going to loop this entire thing. And what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to write isError equals false. I'm going to fix the formatting so you can see it a bit better here. Okay. So the idea here is I create this Boolean variable called isError, and I set it to true, and then we go into a loop, and I keep looping while it's still stuck at true. So what happens is it's going to keep running this code, and it'll keep trying to run it, and every time it crashes, it's going to jump into here. But if this line runs successfully and it does not crash, then what happens is the isError would then become a false, which would cause the loop to break. So this is a good way of doing it. So if you know this is the line that's going to crap out here, okay, then what you can do is you can switch the Boolean variable to the opposite here and break the loop as soon as the line runs successfully. If it doesn't run successfully, it'll jump down into here and it'll skip over the isError equals false. So I'll show you how it works. Now again, this is not the greatest example because mathematically it's not dividing the way I want it to divide. But if I were to go 10 divided by 5, that should work. 10 divided by 5, because those are integers, that works no problem. Okay, and it gave me my 2. But let's try 10 divided by 0. Error cannot be divided by 0, so it did this. Now it's looping again. 9 divided by 0, looping again. If I go 20 divided by 10, now it's actually working. So it's allowing me to fix my error, which is the ideal way of dealing with an exception. Now again, what you need to do is you need to purposely crash your program and make sure you know what the exception is. So if I know it's an arithmetic exception, I can deal with that. If it's a different kind of exception, like a number format exception, you can deal with that as well. You can have another one here for catching an number format exception. So we can decide which one to go into. You can have multiple different exceptions, right? So again, this is just a little demonstration. It may not have been the best one because mathematically this wasn't behaving the way I want it to behave, but it still was able to show you how to deal with an arithmetic exception if it does occur in your program. So hopefully you learned a little bit and give you some ideas how to deal with exceptions in the future in Java.